Lesson 1.7, multiplying and dividing integers. You know that positive times positive is positive. 3 times 5 is 15. But we could write this as 3 groups of 5 also. 5 plus 5 plus 5, and get 15. We don't often have you write multiplication as repeated addition anymore, but we can do that. Now let's look at positive times negative. Let's look at 3 times negative 5. Well, we could write this as 3 groups of negative 5. Negative 5 plus negative 5 plus negative 5. Same sign, sum, negative 15. So it makes sense. If I have negative 5 3 times, I get negative 15. So positive times negative is negative, and in reverse, negative times positive is negative. Let's look at these 2 examples as area models. This time I would like to multiply 12 times 18. It's an area model because if I had a rectangle with one side 12 and the other side 18, to find the area I would multiply them together. Well, I don't know what this is off the top of my head, so I'm going to break down those numbers. I'm going to say 12 is 10 plus 2, and I'm going to say 18 is 10 plus 8, and get the partial products. 10 times 10 is 100. 10 times 8 is 80. 10 times 2 is 20. And 8 times 2 is 16. If I add all these up, 100 plus 80 plus 20 plus 16, 100 plus 100, 200 plus 16, I get 216. This is my positive times positive example in area model because all of my numbers I was working with here are positive, so all of my partial products are positive. Let's look at this another way. Let's write our 12 still as 10 plus 2, but let's write our 18 as 20 minus 2, because 20 minus 2 is 18, right? All right, 20 times 10, 200. Negative 2 times 10, negative 20. Negative 20 times 2, 40. And negative 2 times 2, negative 4. Now we have some negatives times positives in this problem. Adding our partial products, 200 plus negative 20 plus 40 plus negative 4. Combine these two, 180. Combine these two, 36. 180 plus 36, 216. And we knew it had to be 216 because both of these represent 12 times 18. Now let's look at an example that includes a negative times negative in our area model. We're going to use the same numbers in our example, 12 times 18, but this time let's write it another way. This time, instead of writing the 12 as 10 plus 2, let's write it as 20 minus 8. And we're still going to write the 18 as 20 minus 2. So in our area model, we're going to set up our numbers like this. This is our 12, 20 minus 8. This is our 18, 20 minus 2. Okay, let's do our partial products. 20 times 20 is 400. It's wiggling. Negative 2 times 20, negative 40. 20 times negative 8, negative 160. And negative 2 times negative 8, I don't know. We haven't done that yet. So I'm just going to put question marks. But what we do know is that 12 times 18 is 216. We know that. So let's add up our products that we have, our partial products. 400 plus negative 40 plus negative 160 plus I don't know has to equal 216. These two combine, 360 minus 160 plus our mystery number equals 216. Combine these two numbers, we get 200 plus I don't know equals 216. Well, what does our I don't know number have to be? has to equal 16. So our negative times negative must be positive in order to make our area model work, and we know it has to work because we've done it 3 times now. So I wanted to show you like this so you would kind of understand why negative times negative has to be positive instead of just telling you the rule. But here's the rule. If you have the same signs, you get a positive answer. If you have different signs, you get a negative answer. So positive number times positive number gives us a positive answer. Negative number times negative number also gives us a positive answer. The only way to get a negative answer is if we do positive times negative or negative times positive. But what if you need to multiply more than 2 integers? Let's do a little experiment. Negative 1 times negative 2, negative times negative pairs up, and we get positive 2. Let's do negative 1 times negative 2 times negative 3. Well, these two pair up, and we get a positive, but now we have positive times negative, so we have negative 2 times negative 3, negative 6. I'm sorry, we have positive 2 times negative 3, negative 6. How about negative 1 times negative 2 times negative 3 times negative 4? These two pair up, positive 2. These two pair up, positive 12. 2 times 12, 24. What about negative 1 times negative 2 times negative 3 times negative 4 times negative 5? These two pair up, make a positive. These two pair up, make a positive. We still have a negative. So here we have our positive 24 from before times negative 5, negative 120. Let's write down the number of signs, number of negative signs in our problem and see if it was positive or negative. Here we had 2 negative signs and our answer was positive. Here we have 3 negative signs and our answer was negative. In this example we had 4 negative signs and our answer was positive. Here we have 5 negative signs and our answer was negative. Do you see a pattern? 2 and 4 give us positive answers. 3 and 5 give us negative answers. Here's our rule. If there are an even number of negative signs, our answer is positive because the negative signs all pair up. If there are an odd number of negative signs, our answer is negative because after all the even signs pair up, we end up with a positive and negative. Let's try these examples using x equals negative 4. I'll cover up the work for the first one. Negative 20 times x squared. Remember, when we substitute, we use parentheses. Negative 20 times negative 4 squared. Following order of operations, we do exponents before multiplying. Negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16 times negative 20, negative 320. How about 32 divided by x squared? 32 divided by negative 4 squared, order of operations says exponents before division. So we have 32 divided by 16, our answer is 2. This example is the opposite of x squared, okay? So we find x squared, then we take the opposite of it. Substitute in our value, we get the opposite of negative 4 squared. Using the order of operations, we need to do the exponents before we can deal with this negative. And when we do the exponents, negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. The opposite of that is negative 16. One more. How about the opposite of x squared? So when we substitute in, now we have 2 sets of parentheses because this already started with parentheses. So we have the opposite of negative 4 squared. Order of operations here says do parentheses first, right? So what's the opposite of negative 4? Positive 4. Positive 4 squared is 16. This problem says the opposite of x squared. This problem says the opposite of x squared. So you find x squared, then take the opposite. You need to watch your parentheses. Don't confuse those. That's it.